Hello and welcome to the continuation of the series where I'm setting out to rank all 25 of the movies released by Pixar Animation Studios. I decided to break the ranking down into 5 parts, so each video will cover 5 movies. This is the second video where I'll be ranking my choices for places 16 through 20. Let's get into it. Quick disclaimer, this is not a worst to best list. It's my least to most favorite, which means it's based on my personal taste. You're bound to disagree with me, but that's what keeps things interesting. This video will also contain spoilers just in case you haven't seen all the movies yet. That being said, please enjoy the next 5 entries in my Pixar ranking.
Number 20. Finding Dory.
I don't think anyone was really desperate for a Finding Nemo sequel. The first movie wrapped up quite nicely and there weren't any indications of a sequel being in the works. Then 13 years later, we just got one. It seems like Pixar really wanted to make this movie just so they could call it Finding Dory. It's like the actual plot was an afterthought. Okay, maybe I don't completely believe that, but the plot does feel pretty forced. And there are so many coincidences and conveniences that have to happen in order for it to even work. The movie centering on Dory is also a bit questionable. This isn't a Cars 2 level misstep because Dory definitely isn't Mater, but she is similar in that she's a humorous, quirky side character who probably should have stayed a side character. The plot about Dory trying to find her parents is somewhat compelling, but as I said, it doesn't feel very organic. Nemo and Marlin feel pretty unimportant in this movie, and while most of the new characters are likable, they're not very memorable outside of Hank.
We were pipe pals!
Something I do appreciate about Finding Dory is the way the movie treats disability. Obviously, Dory's short-term memory loss causes issues for her, but she's often able to adapt and work through her problems in her own way. Her condition is part of who she is, and that doesn't have to hold her back from experiencing life and love. She's still completely worthy of these things. The Marine Life Institute's message of rescue, rehabilitate, release also provides a commentary on nature and captivity that offers up some valuable things to think about. Destiny and Bailey both think they have impairments that prove to be products of their captivity, and once they're free in the ocean, they thrive. The animation is great in Finding Dory. It looks very similar to the first movie, but improved since animation technology advanced a lot since Finding Nemo. I'm always so impressed with underwater animation, whether it be done traditionally or in computer animation. And I do mostly like the new character designs in the movie. Baby Dory is too cute. And whoever gave her dad a fish version of a receding hairline. Thomas Newman returned to score Finding Dory, and while I don't think his work here is as strong as the original, that's to be expected. It's still really good. His ability to capture that peaceful, almost ethereal underwater feeling is pretty incredible. Finding Dory is an unnecessary movie overall. I often forget it even exists, but whenever I do sit down to watch this movie, I have a good time. It's entertaining and has some touching moments and themes. And hats off to Sigourney Weaver.
Hello?
I'm Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, hi, Sigourney! I need your help!
Number 19. A Bug's Life.
Most of Pixar's early works are beloved and regarded as their best work, but A Bug's Life, the second ever Pixar movie, doesn't really fall into that camp. I found that people either forget about this movie or they just don't really like it. It's certainly not what comes to mind when I think of my favorite Pixar movies, but I don't mind this one. Flick is one of those can't do anything right but has a heart of gold protagonists, so he's likable but maybe a little boring. The circus bugs that Flick enlists to help fight the grasshoppers are an interesting bunch. He mistakes them for warriors and they mistake him for a talent agent, and the ensuing hijinks are fairly entertaining, but a plot that relies so heavily on misunderstandings and accidents can only go so far. I do really like watching the construction of the fake bird. It's so satisfying for some reason. What really works about the plot is the theme about the strength in numbers. The ants have cowered under the dictatorship of Hopper for a long time due to fear, but Flick reminds them of just how much the ants outnumber the grasshoppers and the power that they truly hold because of that. It's so gratifying to watch the mistreated underdogs rise up and take down their oppressors.
Bye, bitch!
I already commented on Flick, but as for the rest of the characters, they're okay. Ada can be a bit difficult to like when she continually doubts Flick, but at the same time, I can't blame her. She's preparing to be the new leader of the ants, and she has to put their best interests first. Dot is slightly annoying, but her relationship with Flick is really sweet and adds heart to the movie. And Granny Ant is a boss. The circus bugs are a weird and fun bunch. Heimlich and Francis are the most memorable due to the humor they bring. It's not my style of comedy, but I still think they're good additions. Does anyone else remember the different VHS covers for this movie with the different characters on them? The animation is not amazing in A Bug's Life, understandably so. It was only Pixar's second movie after all. It was impressive for its time, but hasn't aged amazingly. It's helpful that there aren't any humans in the movie though, because that's what Pixar initially struggled with most. Randy Newman's score is fantastic for this movie. The main theme does get repetitive, but it's such a strong piece of music I don't mind too much. I don't revisit A Bug's Life very often, and I don't hold it in as high regard as other early Pixar films, but I still like it. It has a powerful underlying theme, and it's decently entertaining.
Number 18. Soul.
Soul draws a lot of comparisons to Inside Out. The characterizations of the souls are similar to the personified emotions, and the Great Before is reminiscent of the inner workings of Riley's mind and the islands of personality. Soul just doesn't feel as focused or creative as Inside Out, but the movies shouldn't be compared too much. Joe is a character who believes that everyone has a purpose on Earth relating to a passion or a calling, and his happens to be playing jazz music. While desperately trying to find 22 Sparks so he can use her badge, it's revealed that her spark is not anything grand, but the simple daily joys of being alive, the small moments spent together or enjoying nature's beauty. Watching Joe take this to heart is something special. After he fights his way back to play the show with Dorothea Williams, he's surprised and disappointed to find that he doesn't really feel any different. He thinks he's finally done being a failure and fulfilling his life's purpose, but it seems the experience doesn't match what he built it up to be in his head. In a lovely sequence, Joe plays the piano from his heart, taking inspiration from the things that brought 22 joy. He reflects on all those small, beautiful moments that have made up his life, and it's here that he sees what truly matters. His life may not have been everything he dreamed it would be relating to his passion for jazz, but it was still a spectacular life full of love and happiness and everything in between. This message is interesting to me. There's so much pressure and emphasis put on what we make of ourselves in regards to achievements and a career, and if we don't succeed in these areas, we feel like worthless failures. But as we saw from Joe, someone can experience success and still not feel fulfilled by it. It's not that having career aspirations is a bad thing, but I think the movie is pointing out how in society we place a bit too much importance on this, and often forget to simply live and revel in the precious joys of life. I appreciate this a lot because I've never felt truly drawn to anything in terms of a calling. There are things I like, but I've often felt aimless and like I'm wasting my time by not having that type of purpose. What Soul tells us is that just being here on Earth and existing is enough. Experiencing a breeze, eating good food, and having a laugh with a friend are all things that make life worth living. It's a theme I absolutely love. Unfortunately, I'm not so big on the execution, or this movie would be way higher. The Great Before is creative, but it also feels abstract and hard to get a clear grasp on. Some of the humor lands, but some of it falls a bit flat or is just too weird to hit correctly. The concept of the zone is a little too convenient and even harder to wrap my mind around. I also feel like the movie completely changes tones once Joe enters the cat's body and 22 enters his. It's suddenly a weird Freaky Friday-esque plot that seemingly comes out of nowhere. Other than that, the movie is pretty engaging and watchable. The animation is strong, and I absolutely love the jazz music Jon Batiste wrote for this movie. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is also spectacular. It doesn't have the most memorable themes, but it matches the vibe and elevates the emotional moments so well. I'm glad that Soul exists, because its message is something that a lot of people probably needed to hear, including myself. The execution and some of the plot elements could have been better, but I applaud Pixar for the ambition and the original story.
Number 17. Turning Red.
I had an absolute blast when I first saw Turning Red. It doesn't feel anything like a Pixar movie, but instead of that bothering me, I embraced it. I thought it was so refreshing, bold, and fun. I really just had to respect its guts at the end of the day. I remember there was a lot of online discourse when this movie released after a critic said that a movie about a Chinese Canadian girl was too specific. He couldn't see himself in the movie and therefore he couldn't enjoy it. And that's just the most hilarious thing. Like, oh, I can only enjoy a movie if I can see myself in it. A massive reason movies exist is to see the perspectives of others and expand our horizons. Only watching things we already know would be so bland. And his logic completely falls apart if you look at most other Pixar movies. Is he a toy? Is he a robot? Is he a monster? No, and I'm guessing he didn't have the same problem with those movies. May turning into a red panda most closely symbolizes a parallel to going through puberty, and while I think the whole curse surrounding this is a bit muddled, I like the premise. Red Panda May is really cute, and the situation makes for some very entertaining and engaging antics. There's also been some discussion about this movie not being appropriate for kids, and I guess I can sort of see that for younger kids, but for the ones around 12 or so, this movie is showing them things that they'll actually be experiencing, and I think it's harmful to say normal growing experiences like this are inappropriate. This movie has probably made so many kids feel comforted and seen, and I love that. Some of the plot beats are admittedly a little ridiculous, but like I said earlier, I just embraced it and had a good time. I love the early 2000s time period the story is set in, and the boy band obsession being such a big part of the story is awesome. I'm obviously biased as I grew up in this decade, but it's great to see. May has such a spunk and an appealing personality, and I really like her group of friends. They all bring something a bit different to the table to round out the cast. Of course, a large portion of the movie focuses on May's relationship with her mother, Ming. This brings about another aspect of the Red Panda curse metaphor, and that's generational trauma. The pressure that mothers put on their daughters, especially in May's culture, is such a major factor, and while I've heard that the resolution she experiences with Ming isn't necessarily realistic, it's still very nice to see. The animation style is so different for Pixar in Turning Red, as it often takes inspiration from anime. I think this is so cool. Seeing the studio be so willing to be adventurous is fantastic. And this is where I need to bring up writer and director Domi Shi. As a creator, I have so much respect for the originality and creativity she possesses. If she's the future of the studio, I'm more than okay with that. The score by Ludwig Göransson is perfect for the movie. It has Chinese influences, but also just a bright, energetic sound. And the original songs written for Four Town by Phineas O'Connell and Billie Eilish are stellar. It must have been so fun to write those. Ultimately, I think that Turning Red is a pretty important film. It's willing to explore themes and story elements that you wouldn't expect, and it also happens to be a charming and wildly entertaining movie.
Number 16. Luca.
Is this Pixar's The Little Mermaid? Possibly so. Luca is a young sea monster with an infatuation for human things who would much prefer to be on land. Meeting Alberto helps him to overcome his fears and pursue the things he really wants, despite his parents' strong disapproval. Seeing as this movie takes place in Italy and centers around the deeply impactful relationship between the two male leads, you could also say this is Pixar's Call Me By Your Name. And that's not just a joke, actually. Luca being a sea monster is something that clearly makes him different among others, and it's something his parents worry about a lot. His grandmother has some important dialogue towards the end of the movie.
Some people, they'll never accept him. But some will. And he seems to know how to find the good ones.
This can be a metaphor for so many things, but the most common comparison I've seen is for being gay. It could really be anything though, it's so versatile. And I think that makes this movie's themes heavily relatable and impactful. The friendship between Luca, Alberto, and Giulia is endearing. They're a little group of underdog outcasts, and it makes them quite easy to root for. Their main opposition to winning the Portorosso Cup is the irritating bully Ercole Visconti, so that just makes them even more likable in comparison. I enjoy how fascinated Luca is when Giulia teaches him some of the things she's learned at school. Seeing someone so excited and eager to learn because he's never had the opportunity sort of reminds me not to take my own experiences for granted. I like the main relationship in the movie between Luca and Alberto. At times, Alberto's behavior can be tough to swallow, like when he gets jealous and possessive over Luca, but we learn that it's only because he's been alone for so long. At the end of the movie, when Alberto puts Luca's desires first, selling the Vespa they bought in order to pay for Luca to go to school, it's highly emotional. Their love for each other is so sincere, and both of their lives are so much better for having met each other. There are some random things like the infatuation with Vespas and the Silenzio Bruno joke that might have come across as weird, but I find that overall they contribute to making Luca and Alberto's bond a lot more authentic. The animation style here is unique, and I really appreciate that. The setting is also so lovely. The Italian town of Portorosso is so quaint and bright. It's such an appealing place to spend the duration of the film. I adore the main theme in the score by Dan Romer. It perfectly captures the gorgeous longing and wonder that Luca experiences throughout his journey. It's one of the things that elevates the entire film for me. Luca is a movie that has so much youth and heart at its core. It's special to see a movie that includes young friendship that is so loving and nuanced. It doesn't have my favorite plot, which brings it down, but the music, animation, and themes are all sublime. And that's the list. Thank you so much for watching part 2 of my Pixar ranking. Feel free to share your own thoughts and rankings in the comments down below. If you liked this video, hit like and subscribe, and head over to the Trove to check out more rankings, trivia, and video essays. I'll have links to playlists in the description down below. Thanks again for hanging out, and expect part 3 of the Pixar ranking coming soon. See you next time.